Welcome to another episode of the Bearded Mystic podcast, and today we are going to be discussing Vedanta Sara, starting from verse 7. In the last episode, we looked at how, in that, kind of the summary of that episode is that Vedanta is about that spiritual knowledge that follows from ritualistic practices. The Upanishads are the primary authority, and then, obviously Brahma Sutras and the Bhagavad Gita elucidate their meaning. Once we're blessed with true wisdom, karma no longer affects one because we realize that we're neither the doer nor the enjoyer, so neither the karta nor bhokta. And Puranas are instructive stories, not direct truth. So to understand the deeper wisdom, one must turn to authoritative text like the Upanishads. So obviously we know that mental purity and certain specific practices are required to be ready to study Vedanta and to have realization and be ready for that. And, the whole point is that one should have that longing to realize their true nature. And, regular awareness of formless awareness brings peace and joy, and that confirms that we're on the right path. Before we go any further, do join the Discord server if you're not part of it already. And let's get started with verse 7. So, verse 7 is, actions such as fire worship, so which is the Jyotishtoma and similar rituals, which aim to achieve specific desired results, like attaining heaven, are known as desire-driven or kamya actions. So any ritualistic action that is done more or less is to attain something, whether that's, a long life, whether that's to have the birth of children. Back in the day is more for sons, and for heaven, for a better life in the future. So these rituals that people do, these good actions that people do, have a specific outcome. Now, Vedanta is not about dealing with those things, but we should understand, if you do those things, that this is what they achieve. So very simple. They kind of join you to a specific outcome, and that's what you want. Then, obviously, what are the prohibited actions? Because that was discussed in the last episode. Actions such as the slaying of a Brahmin, which lead to undesired consequences like going to hell, are considered prohibited or nishida actions. One thing I will say, when it says the slaying of a Brahmin, that's anyone who knows Brahman. So not necessarily, someone who's born in the caste, so to speak, but anyone that is a knower of Brahman, is a self-realized person. If you slay them, you're gonna go through a lot of inner turmoil, because when we get rid of good people in this world, there is a lot of suffering that follows, because those good people create good karma, and because they create good karma, we're able to gain so much from being in their company. So, where humanity could get better, what happens as a result is we reduce the goodness that's in the world. Now, I would even say, nowadays, yesterday I did that episode about if your guru has an allegation, what do you do? How does Advaita deal with that? That was in the light of recent allegations in regards to Sadhguru. Now, that's one thing, but, would we count the slaying of character as going to hell? No. If there's truth to those allegations, and this is this is me broadly speaking, not necessarily to anyone specifically, but character assassination would not be considered in this, unless, if we find out that is untrue. So if there's allegations, I wouldn't call that the slaying of a Brahmin or a self-realized person. So what are the daily nitya actions? So daily rites are actions whose non-performance results in the harm. And examples include daily worship at the three junctures of the day, dawn, noon, and sunset, among others. So, that can include like bathing, chanting sacred verses, deity worship. All those are good actions, and they help to purify the mind, doing Nam Japa. Now, it says they're doing it 3 times in the day. I don't think we have the capacity in our busy lives to do that, but anytime that we can remember God, remember our Guru, remember any of the mantras and recite the Guru mantra, those are all good things that we can do and should do. And they're just there to help us build a foundation for spirituality. And that's the main purpose. Then what are the occasional nemittaka actions? So those are actions, occasional actions are those performed on specific occasions, such as worship conducted after the birth of a child or funeral rites or whatever. But those things are, just for specific occasions, not necessarily they have an importance that you need to do on a daily basis. So then, but that's naming the child, the first intake of food, of solid food for babies, start of education, the thread ceremony that Brahmins do, marriage, and rituals to remove misfortunes also come under that. And, frankly, those things, they're important, but I would always go back to Vedanta is not about those things. They can help you, they can purify your mind. There's a certain limit to what they can give you, but we shouldn't be too engrossed in those things. For example, like if you're meditating 3 times a day, but at the same time you have blind faith, then the meditation has no value, or has very little value. So one has to understand the purpose. Some people say, well, this is what we've been doing all of our lives. My parents did it, so that's why I'm doing it. That's blind faith. That's just blind worship. That's just blind following of religion. And this is not what we're meant to do. We're meant to be aware, alert of why we're doing things and how they help us. So then he goes to the next bit, which is prayaschitta, which is penance. Actions performed to absolve one of sins are referred to as penance, such as fasting according to the phases of the moon, Chandrayana. So, people do different fasts. People may do Maunvrat, where they have a vow of silence. Someone could do any number of penances that are prescribed in the Vedas. And again, those things are related to the body and mind. Everything that we've looked at about the daily rites, the occasional rituals, the fire ritual, the penance, all related to body and mind. None of these are related to the true nature of who we are. And that's where we have to understand that these things are meant to be taken too seriously. I don't do any of those things that are being mentioned. But does that mean that one cannot be available to kind of, well, I say I don't do any of those things. I do meditate. I do have a certain practice. But one shouldn't be so bound by these rituals. If they're binding you where you cannot focus on your true nature, then there's very little point. So yes, we can do these fasts, we can do these things, they may be very helpful. We may do penance, we may want to get rid of the sins that we've done in previous lives. We consult a Pandit and they tell us what to do. All those things are good and nice, but again, is it going to take you to mukti? Is it going to take you to liberation? And that's what we've got to ask. So again, when we're doing these rituals, we must ask questions to see, how are they helping us. So that's verse 11. Then let's look at what upasana is. So, mental activities directed towards the contemplation of reality with attributes, or saguna Brahman, are called worship. An example is the practice described in Shandilya Vidya. So, actually, this is mentioned in the Chandogya Upanishad, where we talk about the worship of reality with attributes, and that's called Shandilya Vidya. And what it is, it's about, we understand that this world, it's originated, it's sustained, it dissolves into this reality. Everything comes from Brahman. Nothing escapes Brahman or consciousness. So if we understand that that's the way it is, we worship those attributes. So we may see it as all pervasive, or we may see it in our heart, and we may feel it in our heart. We may perceive God to be omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent. All those things are very, very good, and they help us. When we focus on the attributes, that's worship. So when you see people say, God, you're amazing, you know what's in my heart. There's very poetic pieces on that, and that's what is meant by upasana. I like upasana more. That's what I like to do. If I want to praise the divine, thank you for that experience of oneness. Thank you for showing me the interconnectivity with everything. Thank you for showing this illumination of consciousness. Things like that, where we can be grateful, and it's just cultivating gratitude, and cultivate. That's what true worship is. When we have that gratitude for the realization that's being given to us from aligning and abiding in Brahman. So we will continue the rest tomorrow or the day after. But main thing to contemplate here is, do those practices which really bring you joy and really you really inspired and motivated to do. Don't do them because you're obligated. Whenever we do something we're obligated, our heart isn't in it. And when our heart isn't in it, we're not going to reap the benefits that are available from doing such things. So most importantly, remember to be motivated, put your full heart into it, put your full spirit into it, full love and compassion into it, and it will reap many benefits. So that's the episode. If you liked what you heard, please do like, please do comment, and do share this with others that are wanting to learn about Vedanta. This is a great way for us to understand the deeper meanings. It's going to get deeper as we go along, and therefore it's going to be really important that we may only do one verse in a session because of the depth. So remember to just self-reflect upon the daily actions, any of the rites and rituals that you do, and how or any of the worship that you do, and how it makes you feel. And if it makes you feel joy, brilliant. If it doesn't make you feel joy, then ask, what is missing? What am I not getting from this? Am I doing this because I have to do it? Where is the love for the divine? And that's something that we can think about. Okay, thank you very much for listening. Do subscribe. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast streaming app, do rate and review it, and join my Discord server, and everything is in the show notes and video description below. Truly appreciate it. Take care, everyone. Namaste.